Let me start by saying I am genuinely very sorry if you lost money today because of the Nomad bridge hack. I really am. Having said that, I will also say that if you've been listening to this channel, you shot yourself in the foot. We've talked a million times about the Robbery Forest, lobster traps, and bridges. Not only are bridges likely to be in the Robbery Forest, they're also the sketchiest part of Robbery Forest. We've covered numerous bridge hacks and talked about how they're always a potential lobster trap. One of the greatest beauties of crypto is self-custody. When you relinquish that, you relinquish security. Ready? Let's go. Today, we are going to discuss the Nomad bridge hack and its effects on Cardano, an update from Charles on the Vasil hard fork combinator event, a reminder on transitory inflation, and a petition aimed at your boy, Gary Gensler. It's a mean petition. If you are now diligently trying to avoid these assets that could be subject to these kinds of bridge hacks so as not to shoot yourself in the foot, or if you're finding value in these videos each weekday, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. The Robbery Forest is back in full force, guys. The amazing thing about these Robbery Forest hacks that we have sort of been spectators to over here in the Cardano world, the weirdest thing about them is how everything looks in hindsight. Like we go over here to the Twitter profile of Nomad. They say, the future of cross-chain communication is optimistic. Unfortunately, it's most optimistic for robbers. That's who the future of Nomad cross-chain communication turned out to be optimistic for. They very optimistically filled their wallets today. So Nomad, their behavior in the wake of this, this exploit isn't really unusual. We saw tweets like this. We are aware of the incident involving the Nomad token bridge. We are currently investigating. We'll provide updates when we have them. I mean, prudent answer. They don't want to say anything that'll make it look like they were negligent or reckless in any way. You know, they're in kind of a precarious situation. They have to worry about different forms of liability when things like this happen. So they're gonna give you something very, very vanilla, which does not imply that they are to blame in any way. The most entertaining part, though, is always looking at their previous posts, like this one, which was actually just today. I assume before the hack happened, though. They say, in just 3.5 months, we doubled our Bird app community to 20K. Cheers to all the mad anons out there that believe in a security-first cross-chain future like we do. Yeah, I would definitely say this was a security-first kind of day, Nomad. So then we get the post that neither shoulders any blame or provides anything helpful, really. I actually don't blame them at all for this kind of response. They're probably just following the advice of legal counsel. I mean, this might have even been crafted beforehand as part of some kind of an exploit response plan. We've gotten to the stage in crypto where this is happening so often in the Robbery Forest. I wouldn't be surprised if many EVM world bridge projects already have exploit response plans crafted up and ready to go just in case something like this happened. In case you're unaware of how this is connected to Cardano, here's what Milkomeda had to say about this. We are aware of the Nomad exploit. Unfortunately, we can't control what happens to other projects. This does not affect the base Milkomeda protocol, but Nomad is one of multiple bridges deployed to Milkomeda, so users of Nomad-based assets on Milkomeda and Cardano are affected. Exactly how big was the hack? According to this thread, Nomad just got drained for over 150 million in one of the most chaotic hacks that Web3 has ever seen. How exactly did this happen and what was the root cause? Allow me to take you behind the scenes. And I believe this is the TVL chart on DeFi Llama for Nomad. You can see up here they were well above 150 million. What were they? Looks like almost 180 million, maybe thereabouts on this chart. They went all the way from up here all the way down to here, which is, I think, where he's getting that 150 million number from. This thread says, it turns out that during a routine upgrade, the Nomad team initialized the trusted root to be 0x00. To be clear, using zero values as initialization values is a common practice. Unfortunately, in this case, it had a tiny side effect of auto-approving every message. This is why the hack was so chaotic. You didn't need to know about Solidity or Merkle trees or anything like that. All you had to do was find a transaction that worked, find and replace the other person's address with yours, and then rebroadcast it. Attackers abused this to copy paste transactions and quickly drained the bridge in a frenzied free for all. You might have seen the reports today that random people figured out that this hack had happened. They just went to the transaction that was successful for the hackers, copied the transaction, and replaced the hacker's address with their own wallet address. And then they were able to replay the attack against Nomad. And I guess people did this repeatedly. It looks like some people may have done this sort of in a white hat effort to get the funds out of the contract. But it also looks like a bunch of people might have just done it because they saw that it was party time in the Robbery Forest. But Solidity is totally secure, right? It's not like changing one value in a contract like this could possibly have these unintended consequences, because Solidity is not a high assurance language and it's difficult to validate the contracts. I mean, it's not that scenario. Our interoperability did have its impact on Cardano projects today. Charlie3 said, addressing the Nomad bridge hack, the ERC20 tokens had very limited liquidity. That is not the worry. Do not buy C3 right now. We limited our risk by only ever having 2 million C3 Cardano native tokens in the bridge. Join the Telegram and Discord for more updates and discussion. We are working with the other affected teams at Iagon Official, Gerald Wallet, and CardStarter to try to manage the situation. Please be calm and await updates. We are sorry for anyone affected currently. This was a Nomad bridge hack and not the fault of any of the parties that have been victimized. Iagon said, there has been an exploit on the Nomad bridge. We will take down our UI front end that supports the bridge. We have blocked any ERC20 token transactions to centralized exchanges. Cardano native tokens are safe. OX Paladin SEC has secured 179,221,101 ERC20 tokens. We appreciate them. That is Paladin blockchain security. Jero Wallet said the Cardano native token Jero has not been affected. Our investigation shows a small amount of Ethereum tokens on the bridge were removed. We have no liquidity on dexes for the Ethereum tokens as they were not supported. Your tokens are safe. Here you can see Riley pointing out that the total value locked in the Wing Riders platform definitely seems to have been affected by the events of today. You can see over here, this is in fact not the end of the chart. That is actually a decline from that level. What was that? Something maybe in between 50 and 60 million down to, I think, this value over here, 19.62 million. Of course, that's not a good day for any platform, and it's not a good day for anyone who might have swapped into any of the wrapped assets that might have come across a bridge like this that gets hacked. But I think that's the moral of this story. When people hold these wrapped assets that came across bridges, they feel like they still have custody of their funds. They feel like they have custody of the same assets. If, for instance, they might have swapped from ADA to wrapped Bitcoin or something like that, they feel like they still have custody of an equivalent amount of assets. But those wrapped assets that come across a bridge, those aren't the real McCoy. Those aren't the real assets. That's not really Bitcoin. It's a very different situation from having custody of actual Bitcoin, having this wrapped Bitcoin that came across a bridge, because what you've got is Just something the bridge says it's insuring is equivalent to the asset on the other side of the bridge. But at any point, these bridges could get hacked. It's the same as depositing your assets directly with an entity. It's a potential lobster trap like anything else. You might have swapped from ADA into wrapped Bitcoin and feel good about that because you have custody of the wrapped Bitcoin. But what you did is allow your ADA, like a happy little lobster on the ocean floor. You allowed it to go into a lobster trap. And sure, maybe that lobster trap was a warm and cozy cave on the ocean floor where the lobster could just kind of like rest for a second and then it could leave. But you never know when that cozy and warm cave turns out to be a lobster trap, and the lobstermen heave that trap up on their ship, and your lobster is never seen again, like happened today for a lot of people. Swapping into these wrapped assets that come across bridges is exactly like depositing your funds in any other kind of DeFi platform. You can think of it as being the same as depositing your ADA directly into that platform, just like people who got some bad surprises, a couple of weeks ago during the UST Terra Luna failure. If you give up custody of your funds, even if they give you something that you're led to believe is always going to be of equivalent value or is always going to represent some other asset, even in that case, if you give up custody of your funds, you might be shooting yourself in the foot. Look, I totally get it. People were swapping into these wrapped assets because they wanted those seemingly sweet LP and farming rewards from our Cardano dexes that had these wrapped assets that came across this bridge. But no matter how tempting those farming rewards are and those LP rewards are, no matter how tempting and tantalizing those percentages seem, you're really moving from, in a lot of cases, sort of the trustless world to the world of trust. And you were putting all of your trust into the hands of the security of whatever bridge minted those assets. You're completely trusting their security and you're taking on whatever exploit risk is there. And I think in most cases, people have no idea what level of exploit risk they're dealing with and how high the security is in these bridges. I know they don't have any idea because the developers never have any idea that an exploit like this can happen until it actually happens. Guys, the attack surface of these platforms is too vast. It's too large. You can't give them your money and expect to be able to trust them to not get hacked or to rug pull you. The chances that they get hacked are too high. You can't rely on trust. You can't trust that they won't get hacked. That's one of the pillars of crypto, that we don't do things that require trust. We instead gravitate toward trustless relationships. You need to go towards the trustless relationships, not trust in these centralized platforms. Their attack surface is just too vast. Speaking of trust, this post also struck me today. Just remember that 17 Nobel laureates in economics told you inflation is transitory. When you live in a bubble, you lose touch with everyday people. He says, at this point, I trust small business owners and everyday folks who are feeling inflation more than Nobel laureates. I thought this was interesting. I think the trustlessness of crypto probably has a lot of applications even outside of this whole fintech thing we're currently doing. Today was also almost a return to the Charles AMAs. We didn't quite get an AMA, but we did get this short video. Speaking of lobsters, there's Logan over there, barely hanging on to the microphone arm. You can tell it was a very perilous day for lobsters. There's Charles in his black t-shirt and red checkered shirt. You can see on his face, he is full of excitement and vigor. Unfortunately, he had to address a topic which probably did not fill anyone with excitement or vigor, and that's what's going on with Vasil. So Charles said that during testing, there were 3 separate bugs in Node version 1.35, which they thought was going to be the release candidate for the Vasil hard fork combinator event. So they've fixed the 3 bugs, and we're now at Node version 1.35.3, which Charles says they think will be the version of the node that makes it through the Vasil hard fork combinator event. Apparently, everything was fine, and this is some pretty reassuring news. Everything was fine with SIPs 31 through 33, SIP 40, and pipelining, which are the big pieces of Vasil that I think people are most focused on. But there were problems with the ECDSA primitives. This was another part of Vasil that I think the general community wasn't as focused on. But because there were problems with the ECDSA primitives, that feature will be put aside for now. But they're going ahead with SIPs 31 through 33, SIP 40, and pipelining. And they've all been repeatedly tested at this point because they've gone through all these iterations of the node as they were fixing the bugs. So there's been a lot of testing of those things. And Charles says those are looking just fine. Right now, they're just retesting everything, and they'll have to get everyone upgraded. But he says everything's in hand, and they hope to have some news as we get deeper into August. Finally, it's your boy, Gary Gensler, and he has pissed off so many people that they started a petition at change.org called Fire Gary Gensler as SEC Chairman for Obstruction of Justice. And look at this maniacal photo they found of him. He's even like half shadowed. This is the perfect photo if you were trying to portray Gary Gensler as someone who should be fired as SEC Chairman. The amazing part is that they've already got 18,583 people who've signed this petition. They're saying, let's get to 25,000. At 25,000 signatures, this petition becomes one of the top signed petitions on change.org. And it looks like people are signing sort of, what is this, every 14, there's only a 14-second gap between these two signing this petition. So it looks like Gary Gensler is not on the sort of public relations success list today. I hope you're having a great week, and I will talk to you tomorrow.